Okay, so welcome everyone, and to those who are here, thank you, thank you. It's lovely to see you and to have your energy in this space. And to those who are watching the recording, welcome to the last class of this particular experience. And it's kind of bittersweet because I've really enjoyed being part of this, and it, you know, it's the learning has been exponential for Maya and myself. We were talking about that just before we came on, let alone for the people who have joined us and gained wisdom from all our amazing facilitators. And from this particular experience, we'll be growing a whole lot of new experiences. This is the mummy one. We're going to be birthing a whole lot of little babies from this particular experience. And for those of you who are watching, I'm not sure if you are reading your emails or not, but Mara and I are in the process, and actually very far in the process, of organising a retreat here in New Zealand, starting in January, on January the 18th and going through to January the 25th. It's a whole week. There will be options for a few days, or yeah, there'll be all sorts of options that we're working through at the moment. So, and depending on we're hoping to keep the costs as low as we possibly can. And if the universe decides that it's going to give us the abundance that we are expecting, the costs will be even lower than that, if not free. Eventually, the Soul University's whole idea about learning is that it is free to all those who would want to gain wisdom. And I truly believe that it will get that way really quickly, with all the love and the manifestation that we're putting into it. So a little bit of background. Today, we have the gorgeous Maya back with us, facilitating this session in the heart of her previous home, and in the heart of Stephanie's home at the moment. And Maya is going to take us through Sacred Kitchen and Table, which is something that people, I believe, push aside to the detriment of their whole experience in life. If we can make every act that we perform every day a sacred act, can you imagine how our lives would just transform? Becoming aware, becoming connected to everything and everyone at every time. So without further ado, Maya, thank you
Thank you
for
so
being
much.
here. And off we go.
Thank you. You know, I know from my own personal experience that when I am able to really clear all of the day-to-day energy, all of the distractions, and I can really focus on love in my cooking, I know that the food tastes so much better. And if we extend that to how we set up and run our kitchen, how we set our table, what we bring, literally, what do you bring to the table when you are serving others? But maybe even more important, what do you bring to your table when it's just you that needs to eat? right? Kelly, if you could go ahead and share the slide deck, that would be amazing.
Mhm.
All
Cool.
right.
See this?
So
Right.
go ahead to the next slide. And again, I put this slide at the beginning of each of the decks for each of the classes. But I want to really bring us back to why are we having this experience? And the answer is that wisdom and knowledge, wisdom is knowledge and experience in action. And I think we forget sometimes that it's all of our actions. It's not just one part of the actions as we go through the process. Can we go to the next slide, Kelly? All right. So here's what we're going to talk about today. What do we mean by sacred? Because sacred means something different to everybody, right? What do you hold sacred? We're going to define it so that we have a collective awareness of how I'm using that term and what I mean by it. We're going to talk about the intentional kitchen. What does it mean to set up your kitchen intentionally? How does that translate into practical everyday application? We're going to talk about setting the table. We're going to talk about supporting the workstations in your kitchen. We're going to get serious about storage. And then we're going to actually take some time to figure out what is our intention in the kitchen. And then how do we align our actions with our intentions? And lastly, creating your kitchen love language. So next slide, please. So what does sacred mean? Okay. When I use the term sacred kitchen and sacred table, what I mean by that is it is too important or too valuable to be interfered with. Meaning, for me, my kitchen is the heart of the home. And I want to thank Stephanie for inviting me over. It's been about a year since I've been here. I was here for their wedding last year. And it was so emotional for me to drive from Maine to Vermont to come sit in this kitchen, which was the heart of my home for 7 years. And it is the heart of your home now. And thank you for sharing that with me. And I want to cry. Like it's so emotional.
It felt right. It just felt
Yes.
right.
Yes. Um, you know, I think within each home, there's one person that's the driver of the kitchen. And that person is the facilitator to connection to ourselves, our families, and our community, right? I lived alone in this house for most of the time I was here. And my kitchen was just as sacred in how I set it up and how I prepared the food as it was when I had other people living with me. And over the course of the 7 years I lived here, I had one sister here with me for about 2 years. I had another sister when COVID hit. One of my sisters and her extended family lived just outside of Boston, Mass, and they were quite concerned because there were immunity issues among the grandchildren. So at one point, I had 8 people, including 4 children under the age of 10, plus an extra dog and an extra cat here. And my enjoyment of that experience of having those kids here is those kids actually all had sensory issues with eating. So they had very limited diets. And we were able to, one of them, no, not yet. We're not there yet. One of them, I actually got her, the 8-year-old girl, I was able, like, she learned how to bake with me and she loved getting her hands in the flour, right? So Stephanie shared this with me. Witches call it spells, Christian call it prayer, spiritualists call it manifestation, scientists call it quantum physics. And everybody argues over its name and what it is, but nobody denies its existence. And so as you are doing your everyday things in your kitchen, it's a thing. It's the energy you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. Next slide, please. All right. So the intentional kitchen, the way I said about this was, even though I want to be very intentional about things, there's a lot of practicality in your kitchen, right? You need room for storage. You need long-term storage, short-term, and fresh foods. And I'm gonna go into more details about each of these. So I'm kind of overviewing it here. If you think about the workstations, there's prepping food, cooking food, and cleaning up from making the food. And then at the table, when I come to the table, be it by myself or with others, it's about nourishment, right? The food we eat is nourishment for our body. What it looks like and our pleasure in it is nourishment for our mind. But there's also a nourishment for the soul. You know, they don't call it soul food for no reason. Okay, next slide, please. All right. Let's start with setting the table, right? When you set the table, there's functional needs, right? You need dishes, silverware, napkins, chopsticks, whatever the tools that you use to hold the food and to consume the food. Cleanliness counts. And there are some religions where they are very particular about what you can eat, how you can eat it, what you can combine on a single plate. Those things often came from experiences that our ancestors had where cleanliness led to disease and death. That still is true today, right? Is it pleasing to the senses? How does it smell? What does it look like? What does it taste like? Right? The food to be served, is it abundant or not? Right? So I went to the store today and I'm like, I want to have a little tablescape so that when someone sits down at the table today, or if you're looking at this, what does abundance mean? Now, I bought some grapes, some cranberries, some gooseberries, and a pomegranate. I arranged it on a tray where the food looks abundant, right? If I'd had a huge platter and put 3 grapes on it, a pomegranate, 1 gooseberry, and 1 cranberry, you would be like, all right, apparently they don't have the money to put the food on the table. Scarcity, right? It's a mindset thing. When you are serving food, do you take into account allergies and preferences, right? If somebody tells me they have an allergy to something, I will go out of my way to avoid it. I had a dear friend who actually lives next door here. She and her family had tremendous gluten issues. Her extended family had gluten issues. So I'm like, I'll figure this out. Came up with so many recipes that I accidentally started a home bakery. But one of the things, because so many family members had gluten and dairy issues, Thanksgiving's kind of a nightmare, right? The stuffing's an issue. Milk and butter in everything, right? So one Thanksgiving, we had the table groaning with food and everything on it, every person at Thanksgiving could eat. I cannot understate how seen, heard, and valued every single one of those people felt, because I had taken the time to make sure everybody could eat everything and that it was homemade and delicious. Full of, is it the food full of nutrients and love or not, right? If I'd open, canned spaghetti, that's not going to have the same nutritional value necessarily as when I've gone and gotten the fresh fruit and veg and the artisan pasta that was made with love. It's a very different experience, right? The last one, though, people don't think about it when they set the table, and that's what emotions and what attitudes are you bringing to the table. And I'm going to dig from my childhood. Where eating dinner at the table was not pleasant. There were battles every night because my siblings did not want to eat certain foods, and my parents wanted them to eat certain foods, and they didn't. I mean, there were so many issues and so much tension that we all wanted to leave the table as soon as we could. And I don't know if you know this, but there's been scientific studies that prove when the food is beautiful and it's pleasing to the eye, and you eat under conditions where, I guess I will sum it up as saying, where it's peaceful and full of love, you will actually absorb more nutrition into your physical body from the physical food than if it's not pleasing to the eye and where there's tremendous amount of tension. Right? So intentionally creating moments of gratitude, intentionally creating acceptance of others. Those are really, really important. And while I certainly do not advocate wasting food, I also grew up as a member of the Clean Plate Club. Did anybody else grow up like you got to clean your plate?
Obesity issues.
Obesity issues. Yeah. You know, when you are forced to eat more than your body wants, you teach your body you teach yourself to not listen to what your body's saying. Callie, you have a question or a comment?
No, sorry. I put my hand up and then it put the hand up for me automatically. I'm trying to.
Okay.
I'll that one out.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Can we go to the next slide, please? All right. So just like setting the table, when you are performing tasks in your kitchen, whether it's prepping vegetables or other foods, whether you're doing actual cooking or whether you're cleaning up, each of these tasks has a functional, like if I'm prepping food, I need knives, I need a cutting board. If I am cooking, I need pots and pans, or if I'm baking, I need muffin tins or whatever. But even when I'm cleaning, I need cleaning supplies that are not harmful to my family, that are not toxic to who lives in my house, right? So there's a functionality to each of these. There's also physicality, right? I need, so the kitchen that I live in, not this kitchen, because this kitchen's got more countertop than you can. When I was looking to build a house on this property, I was looking at modular homes, and I stopped randomly one day at this lot of modular homes, and I narrowed on one immediately. I'm like, that's the one I want to go in. And I walked through the door, and I'm just going to say the kitchen island here is the size probably of a double bed. It has more counters and cupboards than you can imagine. And it's all open to the living and the dining area. And I thought, oh, this is so my kitchen. Like this, oh my gosh, the things that I could do in this kitchen, right? But what I loved about it was I had room. I had room to prep. I have room on either side of the stove here. So if I want to be stirring something and cutting something, I have room. The house I'm living in at the moment does not have that. And I cannot tell you how bonkers that drives me. I will also say I'm in the middle of building a house. So I'm staying with someone else right now, and I'm building a house. And my daughter and her husband and I will share that home. And my daughter and I love cooking together. Well, that means I now have to fit two bodies in the kitchen. We need at least two workstations going at a time because one of us will be cooking and one of us will be prepping, or one of us will be, doing the dishes from what has been started, right? So there's a physicality to the needs in a kitchen. And then again, emotionally, right? I I am an amazing cook and baker, and I love it. Like, especially baking. If I can be up to my elbows in flour and kneading dough or making a batter, like that is like my happy spot. I can cook sometimes when I'm not in a great place and it will lift me up. But there's also times that are tougher for me. Um, for example, I lost my older daughter to leukemia. Her birthday was on October 10th. So the day before her birthday this year, this was our 12th birthday without her. And I wanted to make her cupcakes for her birthday that we would eat, and I would set one out for her to honor her place in our life. But I was not doing well that day emotionally. And can I just say, those cupcakes came out like hockey pucks. I threw them all out. They were horrible. And I went to the store and I bought this amazing chocolate cake because my energy was so low and so down on the day that I was baking. And I had even went out, like I cook from scratch almost all the time. I even had acknowledged that I probably emotionally wouldn't be in the right place. I got a box cake mix that you can't mess up if you try. And I made hockey pucks, like bad hockey pucks. So where you're at emotionally goes into the food. And then people eat that emotion when they consume the food. The next thing is, how does intuition play a role? I was having this great conversation with someone I met recently, and he is from a French and Italian heritage. And if there's people who like to cook, it's the French and the Italians, right? And he grew up in the kitchen with his mother, and he loves to cook. And he was telling me that when he cooks, he's a very intuitive cook, right? A recipe is a guideline as a starting point, and then it's like, well, I don't have that spice that will work. The batter seems a little dry, so I'm going to add a little bit more liquid. Like, it's a starting point. His current girlfriend, if it's not in the recipe, she won't do it. And he said there's about 5 things that she makes really, really well, but one of them she makes pretty well, but it's a couscous salad that she makes. And he's like, it's really good, but she never puts in enough olive oil because she goes by what's in the recipe. So I let her make it, and then she leaves the room and I'm there with the olive oil adding it in. The week that last week when you were talking about nurturing, I made the cake recipe and I didn't have dark rum. Yeah. What did I do? Well, I had alcohol in my house. So this sounds a little silly, but I'm like opening the bottles going, no, that one won't go. Put that back. Open the next one. Often, if you're thinking about like adding spices to a recipe, you may not have exactly the spices the recipe calls for. But if you have a set of spices in your house, you can start opening up the spices and smelling them and see which ones go together by smell. Because if the smells are compatible to you, then the taste will be also. That makes sense to people? Okay. Now I just want to touch on cleaning for a minute. When I clean, I actually clean with intention. You know, I am cleaning with love of my kitchen and love for how it supports me. I clean with love for my family because I want my family to stay healthy and safe. So, I'll be honest, I would cook all day if somebody else would clean for me all day long. I would take cooking over clean. And in fact, where I live right now, I live with other people and I do almost all the cooking. My daughter joins me when she can. And someone else does the cleaning. And I love that arrangement. Um, but when I clean with intention. All right, next slide, please. All right. You know, in every kitchen, we need storage. That's why we have cupboards, right? If you think about your storage, I want to talk about the 3 kinds of storage in your kitchen and why we have them, right? The first one I want to talk about is the long-term pantry. And I think of this as like my dry goods, my long-term staples, canned goods, rice, pasta, dry beans, my flour. I was talking to somebody the other day about this as well, and I'm like, you know, right now over here, the election is next week. There's a lot of discussion and turmoil, and people are warning about like civil war if the wrong candidate gets elected, blah blah blah. And there's a lot of people who are saying you need to be prepared for at least 2 weeks of no electricity and no foods, right? Which is really kind of crazy in this day and age to think about. But this is where my long-term pantry comes in. This is also true during COVID times when sometimes things were scarce to get a hold of, right? I have enough rice, dry rice in my cabinet home that we could probably go a month and just eat rice every day and we would be sustained. We would have sustenance. Now, if all I did was boil that rice in water, it would be so boring. It would be, you know, by day 4 or 5, I'd be like, I'm not that hungry. That's where my short-term pantry comes in. The short-term pantry, I think of this as inspiration, right? This is the spices, the herbs, the seasonings, the oils and vinegars, the condiments and sauces, and my baking supplies like baking soda, baking powder. I still do a lot of gluten-free baking, so this would be like my xanthan gum, but anything that it doesn't last as long as my long-term pantry. But I will tell you that I have enough spices and a wide enough variety of spices that if I had to cook that rice for a month every day for every meal, I have enough spices that it wouldn't taste the same twice, probably, or at least would give us enough variety that I wouldn't mind eating it over time. And then, of course, there's the fresh foods, right? The fruit, the vegetables, the freshly baked breads, the cheeses, the meats. These are not as shelf stable, right? I need refrigeration for some of these things. But what I will say is, especially with the fruits and the vegetables, is this is where preserving comes in because, for example, you know, where I live, we have a harsh winter. It's not, you know, we probably have what, maybe 6 months of growing season here. So we've got 6 or 7 months of the year where I couldn't grow my own vegetables if I wanted to, unless I had a greenhouse, but not everybody has those.
Well, and not just an everyday greenhouse. It has to be really sturdy, good greenhouse.
Yeah. Right. And so, how do we make sure that we have some of that in the times of lack? What we do is we preserve it, right? Our berries, our fruit, we make preserves or jams or jellies. With our vegetables, we make piccalilli, pickles, those kinds of things. And so what, that takes that out of the fresh food category into the short-term pantry to long-term pantry, depending on how we've prepared it and stored it. But that's how our ancestors were able to get all of the vitamins, all of the nutrients, all the minerals that they needed year round, even when those foods were not readily available. Does that make sense? Thoughts, comments, questions? No? Okay. Next slide, please, Kelly. All right. No, back one, please. So these are the intentions that we set when we set up these kinds of, and I've touched on this a little bit, but like your long-term pantry, the intention that we're setting when we create that is food security, right? That's how we get sustenance year round. It also helps us with consistency in our diet, and it also helps us feel contented. Now, the contentment that we get from having a long-term pantry is we don't worry about the lack. And, our ancestors were always worried, do I have enough food to live through the winter? We're lucky. It's different now. But if we return to that kind of thinking of, let's get this consistency so that no matter what happens with the election and no matter what happens with the world, I know I can feed my family. That's why we have long-term pantry. With short-term pantry, it's about the creativity, right? My daughter and I, like I said, we love to cook. She adores Asian food. So we have things to make like pho and stir fries. We love Mexican food. So I have birria bombs to make birria tacos. And I have, just so many different kinds. And of course, because I love to bake, I have like all the cinnamons and allspice and nutmeg and clove and all of that too. It's inspiration, right? When we are inspired, our appetite is better. We want the food more. We're going to get that nutrition in. How it tastes is amazing. But all of that really adds up to the richness in life, right? Could you imagine if you're like, okay, Stephanie, from now on, here's a pill, here's a bottle of pills. And every day you don't need to eat food. You only need to take a pill. And all of your calorie and all of your minerals and vitamins are contained in that pill. How quickly, we wouldn't have Thanksgiving, everybody sit at the table. Let's pop a pill to get all of the stuff. And it's like, okay, now
The
we can.
Matrix.
It's the Matrix.
Right. They're just eating the sludge to survive.
Right.
But there's no connection. There's no meaning.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas you set a snack tray or a charcuterie board on a table, and it encourages people to come together. It brings them to the table. It brings the connection to others. But I gotta say, even if I was sitting here eating this myself, I'd be like, oh, that looks delicious. I shall nibble on this. And it, I think we all develop our little rituals of, on a rainy day, a book and a cup of cocoa. Or one of the people that I worked with, he loved in November and early December, as he's watching all the Christmas movies, he would love to sit on the couch with a cup of cocoa and eat cinnamon rolls because that's what he did when he was little. So it's so much more than just food. And the fresh foods provide a different kind of nourishment. Fresh foods to me is a visual abundance. When I buy a package of grapes and I pull this out and I'm like, oh, I don't need that much. I just want to, eat some of it. To know that I have more in the fridge, there's an abundance. All right. Can we go to the next slide, please? All right. So I'm going to talk about this slide, then we're going to take the slide down. We're going to actually do this as an exercise, right? So I want you to all think about what is the intention of your kitchen? And we're going to do this as a brainstorming exercise, right? So, an intention for me is simply a word that represents what I want people to feel when they come to my kitchen, right? Once we're going to do a little brainstorming, we'll do it all together. And then we're going to talk about how is your kitchen already in alignment with a word you pick. So, for example, let's say I want my kitchen to be welcome. I set the intention that people feel welcome in my kitchen, right? How is my kitchen in alignment with that word? Well, number one, I always have enough food to either have leftovers or to feed whoever shows up. I got a couple of great stories about this. My older daughter's husband, but before they were that, he came to live with us. Long story short, he came to live with us. And he had been a very picky eater, but I wanted him to feel welcome at my table. So I knew that he is the only one I've ever done this for, but if I knew I was cooking something he didn't like, I would make him something special for him because I always wanted him to feel welcome at my table. The funny thing was, once he felt very welcome at my table, he would say, "Hey, can I invite my friends?" And I said, "Absolutely. Everybody is always welcome at my table." And one day, it was probably October, early November. It wasn't Thanksgiving yet, but I was really craving turkey and all the trimmings. So I made turkey and all the trimmings. And when he smelled that turkey, he's like, can I invite Nick and his friend Ben over? Can they come to dinner too? Because this is amazing." And I'm like, "Yeah." So he goes into the next room, but I can still hear him. And he calls up his friend. He's like, "Dude, you got to get over here. You're welcome for dinner." And there was this, the friend was talking. He goes, "No, she's making Thanksgiving. You got to come." I can't tell you how much I adored that because not only had I made him feel so welcome in my home and so welcome in my kitchen, but now he was spreading the welcome to others. And that's the infectious nature that I want my kitchen to feel. So that's where it's in alignment with the word I'm choosing. Then I want you to think about, where is your kitchen not in alignment with what your word is? So for example, if I wanted people to feel welcome in my home, but then when they got there, I was really kind of crabby about having to feed other people, how welcome would they have felt? Right? So even though my intention was welcoming, there was something about my kitchen that was not welcoming. So it was not in alignment. Okay. So Kelly, can you stop sharing at the moment? And what I would like to do is I'd like to go around. I'll call on people. I'd like you each to say one word that is how you would want people to feel in your kitchen. And for the heck of it, nobody can repeat a word, because I want to get some different words out here. So Anu, you are first in my Brady Bunch square, so you get to go first.
Caring.
Okay.
Did you hear me?
Yes, I think that Mary is creating a board.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Callie's whiteboard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think everybody can write their own word, or Callie, are you going to write them?
I think people can write their own words.
Okay. If you can write your own word, go ahead and add a word. Ah, joy. Absolutely. And caring, such a great word. Comfort. And if anybody's having trouble writing it, you can ask and we'll. Oh, where am I?
Yeah, I don't
Just
know
start typing.
Can you write?
I think you just click somewhere and start typing.
Yeah, just click and write.
Oh, well, look at that. Wow.
Is it right click or left click? Oh,
Just click. Left
left
click, I
click.
guess.
If
no,
you
it doesn't.
can click on the T text, you'll get a text box and just type in it.
Oh. Yep.
Click on the what?
So on the left-hand side, there's a menu, and about the fifth one down is text.
Oh, okay. All right.
So click on text.
Hmm.
Call me. Yes.
Hmm.
Excellent. All right. So abundance, that's another great word. Pleasure. Oh my gosh, yes. All right. So, the question becomes, you can use your words or you can use somebody else's words. I want you to pick one of the words. And again, we're going to go around. I'm going to call on each of us. What I'd like to see is, pick a word. And then I want you to tell me how your kitchen is in alignment with that word. So, Anu, let's start with you again.
I can pick any word, right? Or it has to be
Yeah.
my own word?
No, you can pick any word.
Okay, so abundance. My kitchen is always abundant. That's how I love it. So even if it's just for two people that I cook, I have plenty of food for everyone. So no one would go hungry if they come to my house. And that's something I learned from my mother and from my grandmother. So they would always say that if someone comes to your house, make sure they don't go without having something, to because food is a way of welcoming people. So in India, we say the guest is like God, Atiti Devo Bhava. So we
Yep.
have to treat whoever comes home as that special person, someone sacred.
Yes.
And so, yeah, abundance is something, yeah, that's my kitchen.
Nice. Jan.
Well, it all starts when people come to my house and park outside, and I want them to get out of their car or whatever and just see the beauty of my potted flowers or, just beauty in the garden. Because when they come to my house or my kitchen, they've got to go to the back door, which isn't that attractive. And so I want to, and when they come in the door, the first thing they see is the laundry. So I've got to make sure that they see something really nice outside. And I'm always at the door to welcome them with a big smile. And when they do walk into my long, very plain kitchen, I want them to see something on the table at the end of the room, with something nice on the table, like candles or a vase of flowers.
Yeah. I get completely understand that because I buy flowers for the table. I don't have a garden right now because I live with other people it's their house, but like there's nothing I love more than flowers on my table. It just, I don't know. For me, there's just something about the beauty of bringing that nature inside that connects it all for me.
Mm.
Um,
Yes, so
Claudia,
mine was really about, you know, I want to lift the energy even before they get into my kitchen.
yeah. Claudia, would you like to share?
Well, for me personally, first of all, the kitchen needs to be practical. And I was just thinking, actually, from the past, living overseas, I was used to having a kitchen like a separate room. And that was completely different than it's nowadays, where everything is open. So the house where I'm living in now, there's the kitchen, but then it's open. It's going into the dining room and to the lounge. And that makes it completely a different scenario.
Mm-hmm. I, I
So,
understand that very
yeah.
much.
So for me, everything sort of like then needs to fit together. And
Yeah.
so actually when you come in, the whole in itself has to be, or I would like it to be, welcoming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Stephanie, your word for your kitchen.
Well, I put nurture and nourish, but so previously all my kitchens I've been closed off from the family. They're off doing whatever, and I'm slaving away. And that changed things. Now I'm in an open kitchen. When we, like you said, the holidays, we put on Elf. I can watch it with the family while I'm preparing food.
Yeah.
But way, way back in my 20s, I took in a lot of runaways, homeless kids, just a lot of kids that had nowhere else to go. They lived on the streets, and it's California, so there's no seasons. So mostly it's fine to live on the streets. But they would get hungry, or it would rain, or it would get cold, and so they knew they could come to my home. They called it the punk rock palace. But they knew anytime they came to my home, there was a warm meal and a warm bed. And that was the bridge. That was the bridge for them from being kicked out of their home for whatever reason made them unacceptable to their parents.
Yeah.
To where they found their way in life. And so I don't know, that generosity, that connection. Like I put nurture and nourish, which I feel with my whole heart.
Yeah.
But that connection, warmth, welcome, all of that, every single one of those words, I feel to my core when it comes to bringing someone into my house to feed them.
Yeah. So I'm gonna add a word that I didn't think of to put up here, but you're talking about, kids that have been kicked out, and one of my son-in-law had been kicked out. That's how he came to live with us. And one of his friends got kicked out, and he came to stay with us for like a couple months. And he had come from a background of both parents had mental health issues.
Yep.
And he grew up making himself ramen noodles. He was lucky if there was ramen noodles in the house that he could, microwave the water and make it himself. So when he came to live with us, there was a vast variety of foods he had never experienced, like most foods he had never experienced. And he would try anything I cooked, he actually loved everything I cooked. But one day I was making shrimp scampi. Now, it was in Maine. We live on the coast. Seafood is huge there. He had never had shrimp in his life. And he's looking at it kind of like, like not like alien creatures were on his plate as far as he was concerned. And I'm like, I can make you something else if you don't want it. He's like, no. Like, I love your cooking. I will try it. So he stabs one with his fork and he goes, so if this is his fork, he goes to the shrimp because he really was not sure he would like it. And he was like, oh. He ate the first shrimp and he goes, shrimp, where have you been all my life? But, so I would say exploration of food is such a big thing for me. And it goes back. So I had odd kids. They came out of the womb foodies. By the time my oldest daughter was a year, she ate everything we did, like salad with blue cheese salad dressing, shrimp with cocktail sauce. Like there was nothing this kid would not eat and love. And as they got to be old enough to come home on the bus and let themselves into the house, because I was working full time, I never had to worry about what they were doing because they were either watching Food Network or Home and Garden television. I would often come home and they'd be like, Mom, we saw this on TV. We have to make this. But one of the things that I would do is I would take them with me to the grocery store. And our game was we would try and find something we had never eaten before every time. So they became acclimated to the exploration of food. And to me, watching this kid who's like 19, 20, who had never had, like he'd never had a BlackBerry. He didn't know what it was. Like we would put food on the table and he'd be like, so what is that? But he felt comfortable saying, I've never experienced that. What is it? How do I eat it? What does it taste like? So that was just joyous for me.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And Mary, do you have a word you'd like to talk about?
Well, I put abundance because, well, when you come to my house, the biggest greeting you get is two big standard poodles who either want to lean against you or lick you or put their paws up so that they can just get up close and personal. And so if you're a stranger, you get sorted out straight away. Because if you don't like dogs, it gets tricky.
How long is the flight? I'll be there shortly.
I think from where you are, probably 17, 18, 20 plus hours. So, and you'll get here in the future. So, and you'll miss some time. So that'll be cool, wouldn't it? One of the things about coming to my house, I love to have yellow flowers. I've got yellow flowers everywhere here, out my window, out the back. Excuse me. And I like to go outside and sit out the back in the garden and have meaningful conversation. So if you come here, be prepared to get deeper, meaningful.
That's lovely.
There you go.
Thank you. So, where we are is a farm. And my farm, when I lived here, it was dogs, cats, and gophers. So a lot of gophers in the field. And one spring day, I was looking out at the back and it was like the first really warm day. And the gophers were all over the field and they were joyous. The little ones were running around. But I always wanted goats and I always wanted chickens. Guess what's here now? Goats and chickens. And this fellow, can you see this fellow?
That's Bragi.
Yeah.
He is a shaman. He has a human soul.
And can I just say, from here down today, I have had almost every part of my body rubbed by that goat today because he was just absolutely, I'm not egotistically, but he was in love with me. Like I mean, he was rubbing my front. He turned around and like, oh, he's gonna go off. Next thing I know, I'm getting rubbed on my butt. I'm like, well, hello. And then you have a bunch of smaller goats.
Yeah.
And can I just say, she has some of the most beautiful chickens I have ever seen. I mean, some of the breeds that you have, I have never seen. I will take pictures and post them in the group or
I will. That way I can include their names.
Yes, please.
Yes, because they all have names that absolutely fit them. We waited until a name fit. So
Yep.
yeah.
I will say that I went to go to the store to buy things to put on a platter today, and I got followed to my truck by 4 chickens who did not want me to leave. And I had to like shoo them away. And so I we walked a distance and I turned around, I go back to my truck, I turn around and they're like right behind me. And I'm like, all right, I got to beep the horn to get them to go away from the car because I don't want to run over them.
Yeah.
But that connection with the animals here is really profound. And that we have a couple of dogs. You have a couple of dogs here that you're fostering. And can I just say, one of them thinks he's supposed to be sitting on top of me the whole time. It's lovely.
His parents are in military training. And so we're fostering them while the parents go through their military training. And yes, they're so loving. But all the animals are. But it's no matter what an animal's purpose is, whatever the end game is, I believe that they deserve to be named, recognized, honored, and loved. Whether it's for eggs, whether it's for meat, whatever the end game of that is.
The milk from the goats.
Yeah. Whatever they are offering, whatever sacrifice they're making for my family's well-being deserves to be honored with love. And so I love every one of those animals as much as any other human in my life.
Okay. Does anybody want to? Oh, okay. So we've talked about where we are in alignment. Now I want to go back around and I want to talk about where your kitchen is not in alignment with your word.
I'll share I'll take my turn to
Elizabeth,
share for the. Yeah, sorry, I was a little late.
No worries.
No, there were so many relatable anecdotes, but I've been thinking lately about, I haven't had my own kitchen in probably like 15 years now. But I've been thinking about that specific time in my life lately when I did, and I was like 18, 19. And our house or our apartment was like the place to go on Sundays. We would usually be listening to some good like Sunday music like Jack Johnson or Bob Marley or something, and be doing art, having coffee, whatever, just relaxing. And I always kind of liked to have things on hand. Like the other night I made potatoes. I just sauteed potatoes, shrimp, basil, butter and garlic, and just kind of was like, oh, I wish I had like people to share that with. So I like to have like basics like that on hand. Tea. I've been building up my tea stock again. I love to have like a whole area of lots of different teas, coffee, and then a table or something, some kind of area that is just easy. Like somebody was saying, I think Claudia or somebody was saying, just that could easily be sat at, doesn't have to be cleaned off or anything, to just sit down and enjoy it. Like, yeah, doesn't have to be a whole lot of stuff, but for me personally, but just something that's ready for people like we were talking about.
You know, it's really interesting you mentioned about the staples and being able to pull stuff out and make it. Another Thanksgiving, we had my family together, and my sister-in-law's mother-in-law, she just passed away like a month shy of her 103rd birthday. And we had everybody here. We had Thanksgiving. We'd made all kinds of food, extensive amounts of food, including multiple pies of different kinds. And she was asking what there was for dessert. And I said, oh, well, we have this and this and this and this and this. And she goes, no pumpkin pie. She's like, I love, like, it's not Thanksgiving if I don't have pumpkin pie. And I had not made one. And it was like before we had eaten the meal. So I had time. Well, by the time we got to dessert, the pumpkin pie was done because I had the staples in the house. And how can you tell a 100-year-old woman that you're not going to serve her pumpkin pie because that's what makes her Thanksgiving? You know, so I loved that I happened to have that readily available to just whip out one more pie. Hallie, is your hand up for a reason this time?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
I didn't get to share either. So
Well,
I
I'm
just
sorry.
for my word for, you know, is
Yeah.
joy and well, two words really, joy and pleasure. When I open my house to guests and people, what I love is the conversation and even more the laughter that comes out of that conversation. And invariably it's always a joy to be sharing food with people. I always find Jan can probably testify to that too, you know. When we get together as a community, there's always a lot of laughter, and for me that just totally makes a meal. The food and everything is definitely important, but for me the joy and the communication and the whole communion, you know, of the and my kitchen, and well, I've also got a kitchen diner space.
Yeah.
That definitely seems to be a place of joy and laughter. So yeah, that's my share.
Nice. Thank you. All right. Can we stop sharing the whiteboard? We are going to go around again, but my question for this round is, I was going to ask where is your kitchen not in alignment with one of these words, but I think I'm going to change up the question just a little bit. And the question is this: if you could change one thing about your kitchen to make it more of what you would want it to be, what would you change? And so Anu, I'm going to start with you again.
Uh, so, Maya, as you know, I don't have a kitchen now. It's a shared kitchen that I have, and it's shared with multiple people. So I spend very little time there. And back home, if I would say something that was missing, it's just like I didn't have someone to share food with me all the time because we had odd times working. My husband's time was different, my time was different. So we really had to figure out when is it that we'll sit down and eat together and have a nice conversation. So that's something that was missing. And that's the reason why I kind of, though I love cooking and I cook very well, I just lost interest. I hope I will be able to regain that interest very soon and really do some justice. But that's something I don't have in in my life, I should say. It's not my kitchen, actually.
Stephanie, I'll have you go next.
What was the question? I was
Yeah,
escorting
that's
the cat.
okay. That's okay. What would you change about your kitchen?
Oh, I need a rack hanging over the island because I have so many tools, but I don't. Putting in the cabinets is inefficient
Yes.
because I'm constantly pulling them. Like you see what I've done over the stove where I hung all of the spatulas.
So I lived in this house for 7 years. I walk in, I look over, and over her over the stove underneath the kitchen hood, she hung a strip and she's got all her utensils hanging down from the strip. And I'm like, damn, I wish I'd thought of that. Like that was missing when I lived here and this was my kitchen.
Yeah,
So,
every time I move, I'm like, intuitively, I feel like I should have access to this.
Yeah.
And so either I fix it or I let my husband know, hey, Randy, you know how much you love my cooking. If I had access to this much easier. And he's like, oh, absolutely. And it will be done that day. But yeah, it's the access to the tools that you need in the moment without having to, I don't know about anybody else, but when I cook, I get into what I call flow.
yeah.
And if that flow gets interrupted, I make mistakes. I lose something in that. And so if I can have everything in flow, I'm good. So once I find a hiccup where I'm not in flow, notated. That's something I need to fix.
Nice. Thank you. Jan, how about you? What would you change about your kitchen to make it more you? You're on mute.
Remodel it totally, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's I've got my dining room table is part of the kitchen. And so if it was a bit bigger, I would be able to separate the two more and have more people to share a meal, because you can hardly fit many people around my table. And when I cook, I don't enjoy cooking because I don't have an expel. And so cooking in the winter is not pleasant. So potlucks work better.
That makes perfect sense, especially since you live so close to Callie. You can make her cook. But Callie, I'm going to make you go next. What would you change about your kitchen?
Well, it's not really my kitchen. I rent. I would, if it was my kitchen, I'd actually finish it. You can ask Jan.
Yeah.
The frustrating, I rent a really gorgeous little house, actually. I mean, it's not huge, it's not small either, but the only problem is that it's never been finished. So the kitchen, although the bones are there, nothing's attached, and you know, things, it gets dirty really easily because nothing's attached, so, and nothing's sealed, so that irritates the hell out of me. And if it was, it suits the house, but I like big roomy kitchens with walk-in pantries and enough space to spread my, my cooking tools, and beautiful storage and things like that. But this would be a lovely kitchen for this house, but it's just not finished. That hasn't stopped me though. The great thing is that there is space. I've got a lovely big table. We can have quite a few people around the table and enjoy the laughter and the conversation. But yes, if I could have my own kitchen, it would be bigger and it would be finished. It would be beautiful too. So a space that I've got my heart in everything. Yeah.
Thank you. Claudia, what would you change about your kitchen?
Well, I'm renting as well, and although I'm blessed this time with a really large kitchen, but as I mentioned before, I'm all for practical. And what really spoke to me, as Stephanie said, the cooking process and everything, needs to be in a flow. So I actually would also rearrange the kitchen. The oven would be somewhere else, and I would love to have a walk-in pantry, what I don't have. I would love that. And definitely more drawers. Yeah, just when I moved in here, it took me ages until I sort of had the feeling, okay, now I can move in this kitchen. Not what I mean regarding space. There is space, but it's just, it was extremely difficult to get into a flow when I cook. And when that happens, then it's not fun. Then I don't like doing it. So, yes.
Yeah. You know, I can really associate, I resonate with that because where I'm living right now, it's not my house. I'm not even really renting. Long story short, because it's not my kitchen and because I don't really, how do I want to say this? I want to be a really good guest. So I have to, I feel like I have to ask whenever I want to move anything. And it is not in a good flow. So I mean, it may have been a good flow for whoever put things away originally, but for me, how I cook and the flow is so important because it's like I don't have room to do this. So well, where's that? You know, and I've been living there a year because my new house is taking so long. And because I love to cook so much, it's really frustrating on a daily basis to kind of fight against, not being able to have it the way I want it.
Yeah.
Contrast that with in my new house, the kitchen is everything, right? My daughter is culinary trained, and so she has definite opinions about flow and functionality and all of that. She loves to cook. I love to bake. So we have built, hello, baby. We have built into our kitchen how we want things to be arranged and what we want the flow to be. And I have a baking station and so I'm in this, I've been living in this kitchen for a year where I have to ask to move anything. And I don't usually, hello, baby. Off, down, off. We go. Where, I don't have control of my own kitchen. And at the same time, I'm dreaming of this kitchen that is everything to me. And we're building the whole new house, but the kitchen is everything for me. So I can relate to all of that. Mary, what do you not like about your kitchen?
There's nothing I don't like.
Awesome.
Yes, I would like something different, but I rent as well, and I'm pretty flexible. I go in and embrace what is, because otherwise I'd be quite stuck, and I don't want to be stuck. Yes, I would like more. I've basically got open plan. I'd like more of that, but I love where I am, and I make the most of it. And I like cooking there. I can look outside. That's one of the things I like, the cooking area to be kind of somewhere I can enjoy the outdoors as well. So yes, at the moment, nothing I would change. Yes, what would I ideally like? Well, that's a whole new story, a bit like what Kelly's saying. But right now I'm pretty happy with what I've got. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Elizabeth, do you want to share?
Sure. So even though it's my mom and dad's kitchen, I just think like the island, like Stephanie was talking about, that would be just for cooking, like nothing else, like just an island, just so I could cook because I'll clean my kitchen for my parents, and me and my sister are both like, why do you have this? You have pens that don't write anymore. Why do you have this random thing over here? You're not like, what is this? Just random little knickknack stuff all over the counter. And I'll be like, oh, there's dad's corner full of random whatever I gotta clean. And my mom also always worked in a kitchen too. And I ask her sometimes, I'm like, why do you do stuff like this way when like you worked in a kitchen and like you tell me how to do stuff more efficiently? So just little things like that. So I always kind of contributed to like, okay, if I could have my kitchen anyway, that I could.
Yeah.
Like Stephanie too, I was like, oh, a rack would be super awesome. I don't have to like click and playing and bang through like cupboards and stuff like that. What else? No, that's about it, really. Just like being able to put stuff like you said too, like, and then Mary understands too, like the flow, just being able to just have things where you need it because you need to, yeah, just the whole process of cooking.
Yeah. Thank you. You know,
Oh.
I want to tell a story that I read on social media several years ago, and I wish I could tell you who wrote it. I don't remember who wrote it. But the story basically goes like this. A woman lives in a home with a small kitchen, and it is very worn. And the depending on whose eyes are looking at the kitchen, and depending on what judgments you make about the kitchen, you could say this is a kitchen that should probably be renovated. And this woman was writing that so many of the people she invited into her home would point out to her all of the flaws in her kitchen. And she said, how they view my kitchen is completely differently than how I view my kitchen. She said, the marks on the door frame, those are the marks where I measured my children's height for all those years. She's like, where somebody tells me my sink is old, I see hot and cold running water on demand. Where somebody sees an old stove that has seen better days, I see all of the birthday cakes I baked for my children. Right? And Mary, I think this is really hitting in on what you said, which is, I love it. It is what it is. I choose to see it through a very positive light. And while we all have things about our kitchens that may be less than, I think that, you know, this woman was like, she's like, and I'm going to borrow your glasses here for a second. She's like, when I look at my kitchen, I look at it like this. She said, if I could take off my spectacles and share them, if I could share her spectacle and I could give it to you like glasses, then you would see my kitchen as I do with love.
Rose-colored glasses aren't always a bad thing.
Right.
They aren't. Yeah.
Right. So I know that we've gone quite a ways. Yeah, Callie, I think that we can definitely take a 5-minute break if people would like to refresh a drink or use the facilities. And just before we do that, Elizabeth shared in the chat. She lives in her childhood home with her parents again, and so much nostalgia and love and memories. Oh my gosh, I second that. Like, my kitchens are always full of love and the memories, the smell memories, the love memories, all good. So it is 25 after. Let's take a 5-minute break and we'll come back at 30 minutes after the hour. And Callie, can you pause the recording? What is going on? Callie, can you check your chat? Thank you. I don't know if everybody else is back yet, so we'll give them another minute or two. Thank you, Mary. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Hospitality is at its finest. I get handed wine spritzers. This is a good class.
Right. Hospitality used to be everything.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a minute.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm going to use the other story you gave me to end the class. So- Yep. No, I think we just go ahead with that, Callie. Okay?
Okay,
All right.
Yeah.
Can you share the deck again, please?
for sure.
Thank you.
If I can find it.
If
For some reason.
you want, I can share it.
No, it's there.
Okay.
I don't know. Something weird has been happening on my, so. I don't know where my. Here it is. Zoom. Sorry.
I got
Present. Are we on the right slide? Yes.
Yep, we are.
Somebody else is having wine spritzers too, I see.
All
No.
right. So I've just got a couple more slides and then we will just have time for question and answers. But you know, I would encourage you to create your own kitchen love language. And one of the things that I do sort of with everything is I lead a very intentional life. And when I am with other people, I like to co-create a shared set of intentions with your family for your kitchen, right? When my girls were growing up, our kitchen was our safe zone. We could talk about anything. And in fact, there's nothing like having snacks together or popcorn together or I don't know, it's like the meal is one thing and it's great to have lovely conversation and have family meals together. But I often found the safest times were the impromptu gatherings where we would go put a snack together or we would go make ice cream or popcorn or, the treats. And I don't know, there was just something about the conversational value.
When my daughters were reluctant to share,
Yes.
making popcorn was the thing.
Exactly.
Because something about the smell of popcorn draws everyone from all corners of the earth.
Yep.
And they would come and I'd be like, yeah, let's have some popcorn together.
Yep.
And then I already knew what the problem was. Like I already knew what was bothering them, but I had to pretend not to.
Yeah.
So we would watch a show or a movie or something that I knew was going to prompt the necessary conversation while we ate the popcorn. But first I had to draw them from their caves.
Yep.
And that was it. Yeah.
Well, and like I said, my kids were foodies from the very beginning. And when Lindsay was in the hospital undergoing chemo really messes with everything to do with food, right? She was nauseous all the time. She didn't want to eat. But you know what she wanted? We would go, somebody was always with her at the hospital and she would say, Mom, would you go home and make me French toast and maple syrup? Or would you go home and make me mac and cheese? All of the foods that she loved. Now, we all knew she wasn't going to eat it. But I would go home and I would make her French toast and maple syrup. And I would walk into her room with it and she goes, oh, that smells so good. And even though the smell of it in a way made her nauseous, and we knew she wasn't going to eat it, and she might, depending on the day, she might have tried a bite. And then she would give it to her husband to eat because he was a, 23-year-old guy who would eat everything.
But my husband's in his 50s and I can give him all the things I don't eat and I never waste a thing.
Exactly. But for her, it was the smell of the food and the memory and the connection because that had been such a strong point of connection that our love language as she was basically dying was food, even though she would never eat it. So, you know, creating your kitchen is a safe space where family can be valued. Um, Always remember that you are the special ingredient in your food. You know, I can go to the store and buy dried pasta and canned tomatoes and make a pasta dinner using some of the spices and some garlic. And it tastes amazing because of the love that I put into it and because of the care that I put into it. But I was a special ingredient. And then, let everything you do be done in love because love always makes it better. Next slide, please. And really, last slide. So, when I was working with Stephanie on her presentation about nurturing, we got on a call to help go through her deck, and she goes, I have these 2 pieces of information and I don't think I need them. I don't know if you need them, but I feel really called to tell you about it. And this is one of the things that she shared with me. In Greece and Rome, there were rules about ancient hospitality. And what I found particularly fascinating about this is both the host and the guests have responsibilities to one another, right? As a host in ancient Rome, you were expected to provide food, drink, a bath, and that one cracks me up, gifts, and a safe escort to the guest's next destination. I'm like, I don't think I've ever offered somebody a bath, but if they ever asked, I probably wouldn't turn them down because I'd be like, okay. And it was considered rude to ask guests any questions, including who they were, before they had finished eating. So those are some really interesting rules for the host.
Yeah.
Now the guests were expected to be courteous and not a threat or a burden to their host. And whenever I'm a guest in someone's home, it never occurred to me not to be, courteous, but I also never imagined being a threat or a burden.
Yeah.
And the guests were travelers, right? Because they were not in their own home. So they were expected to share the news and the story from the outside world. And also expect that if their hosts ever wanted to travel, that they would be the hosts for, the roles would basically be reversed. And I think that today we've lost a lot of, I was going to say manners, and that's not quite the right thing. I think there's a lot less formality to being a host and a guest.
Yeah, the hospitality used to mean something different than it does now.
Yes.
Now it's about masking and putting on airs,
Yeah.
to be impressive. Whereas it used to be an actual code of conduct. I don't know anyone who watched Game of Thrones, but the reason, and I don't want to spoil, but the reason that the red dinner was so egregious was because of all the violations of this
Yeah.
code of conduct.
Yeah. Callie, can we close the deck and start a conversation? Thank you. Anu, you're right. It is comparative competition.
Yeah, and Anu would know about this, but and this still happens in India and Nepal, and when we do puja, I'm part of I guess an Eastern tradition with my meditation practice. It's called ascension meditation of the Ishayas, and when we are we use certain what we call attitudes, which are phrases. It's not quite a mantra, but anyway, we're gifted these mantras, and after every fourth one, we have a puja, and that is when we are offering all the abundance and the love and the joy and everything that you would offer a guest if they were coming into your home. But with puja, it's sharing with the people that you are doing the puja with, but it's also sharing with those who came before us. So it's ancestral sharing and stuff. And I love that. I love that idea of when we break bread together, we're not only breaking bread between you and I, we're breaking bread between our lines, our families, what the Maori call whakapapa. You know, you're bringing the treasures of your families and the traumas and everything, but you're offering it all in love and in communion and sharing that. And I think if we saw, when we do share a meal, or even when we're having a meal on our own, that we are actually connecting at every level, not just at a physical food level. We're connecting between each other, we're connecting to God, we're connecting with the earth because of the food that comes from the earth. It's a very holistic connecting experience. And if we could hold that sacred like a puja, I think actually even our whole and having just said that, I was so hungry that I just wolfed down a peanut butter sandwich. But actually, and then afterwards I thought, now that wasn't very connected. but but if we could, and sometimes we don't, if we could make every act of eating or every act of working with food sacred, I think it could change our physical reality, and that I don't think that there'd be half as much obesity or addiction to food, and so it would make a huge difference. And in every culture, I think about the Maori culture, which I'm immersed in here. They are food is tapu or sacred to them, and there are all sorts of protocols that are related to food, and they always do karakia over their food before they eat it, which is a prayer. They like etiquette, you never ever sit on a table because because your bum is too close to where you eat your food. Okay, so there's you don't play with food here. If you even like pasta shells and things like that, you have to ask if it's okay if you use those in a school setting or a kindergarten setting or whatever, because that's food and it's sacred to them. It's not just a matter of grabbing what's there and using it. There's always a protocol or a ceremony that goes with it. Even harvesting food, they do karakia to the plants and to the land, and everything is seen as a treasure. And if we could do that for ourselves, see ourselves as that treasure, or a taonga as they call it here. If we could do that and be that and embody that, I reckon, we'd solve just about all problems that plague the world.
Yeah, it occurs to me on the Sabbaths, like last night was Samhain, and so I offered a plate of food and drink to the ancestors before anyone else was allowed to eat. And actually, my husband's mom snuck into the treats, and she said, "Well, I am an elder," and I said, "You're an elder, but you're not older than the ancestors, so no." But you're right. I do it at the Sabbaths, but if I were to apply that across the board, that would be have a whole nother depth. It didn't even occur to me.
Yeah. Does any, we've got about 10 minutes left of the class. Does anybody have anything they want to ask or anything they want to add? Anu?
Yeah, so I wanted to add something to what Kelly said. And every time I hear Kelly speak about the Maori traditions, there is quite a bit of similarity with what we do in the East, like in India, and like how you said, like how Stephanie said about Savian. Sorry
Yeah.
if I didn't get it
Samhain.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we do it. We also do it. Like this is called the moon is not to be seen on that particular day. There's no moon,
Yep.
and we call it Diwali, but actually it is we offer prayers to our ancestors. So it's exactly the same thing, but we call it. Someone calls it Halloween. Someone calls it something else. And what I wanted to actually extend to what Kelly said is like it's not just, or what anyone said is not just connectedness to food, it is connectedness to everything, and there should be a sacredness in everything that you do, not just whether how you cook food or and the first thing is we need to get connected with our inner self, and once you get that, how you connect with nature, how you connect with other people, how you connect with earth, how you connect with water, how you it's all about the connection, and somehow we have lost that. And that's why like how you rightly said, it has to be intentional. And in Sanatana Dharma, I mean, it's not a religion, you know it's a way of life that they actually talk about. It's like you need to have that meditative awareness and connectedness in everything you do, and everything you think, everything you speak. I don't know, every single thing. So that's the main thing: intentional and connectedness. And once you have it, I think the rest of the problems in the world would kind of get sorted. But since we have missed that connectedness, and we're just connected over the IoT, the Internet of Things, I think it's lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To that point, this was a story I was going to close on anyway, but I feel it's really appropriate to talk about after what you just said. So when my girls were little, October was one of our favorite months, and Halloween was a big deal. And not so much the trick or treating, but I accidentally started a tradition one year where I invited a whole group of people in my neighborhood to come over to carve pumpkins. So October here, it's dark early, and for about 30 years, the weekend before Halloween, around 3 o'clock on a Sunday evening, afternoon, everybody from my neighborhood would come. And it was a pretty large development. And everybody would bring at least one pumpkin. And many times it would be one pumpkin per kid. And we would gather, we would gut the pumpkins, and we would carve the jack-o'-lanterns. And usually after about 30 minutes, the kids were all off playing and all the parents were carving the pumpkins. It was hilarious. We then would have a potluck dinner together, and everybody would bring whatever they wanted to bring. And I would always do like a turkey and stuffing and like and a salad and the basics, and then everybody else would fill in whatever they wanted to bring. It was never organized. It was always delicious. And then after we had all eaten, we would go out on my back deck where we had lined up all of these carved jack-o'-lanterns, and we would light them. And can I say that this grew and grew and grew over the years until we had, including all the kids, but we would have about 100 people at my house carving jack-o'-lanterns and having this amazing potluck. The kids would, I mean, it was just magical. Like all the kids would just get along. And if it was a rainy weekend that year, we had like car racetracks in the basement. Like there was always something for them to do. And it was a beautiful day, which like yesterday it was so warm here. It was like summer here yesterday. It was so wild.
Which is weird because we were freezing our toes off
Days before.
Yes.
Yeah. But the sense of community that we formed by simply getting together and having this potluck meal, and we would all just talk. Like we would have conversations that I would never have had with these people. We would never have taken the time to have the conversations with these people had we not had this gathering. And can I say, when my oldest went to college and my kids were like, stop, like we don't want to do it this year, I can't tell you how many people were like, so I would normally send out invitations around the 1st of October so people would know like which day it would be. And so the first year I didn't send out invitations. I had people stopping by my house. I didn't get your invitation. Did you send it out this year? And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, but like we're not doing it this year. And they were crushed because it had become, you know, it in such a unique way, because this neighborhood did not come together any other time of year in this way. But it was because I opened my home and we had food and we had the opportunity to get to know each other on a completely different level. It was magic. And it didn't matter who had what religion, because it wasn't a religious holiday per se. It didn't matter what kind of food you liked. It didn't matter, like, all of the differences that we had between us. It didn't matter if we were political or not. It didn't matter if we were a bus driver, a trash truck driver, or a CEO of a financial institution. All of that was peeled away. And we came together with such a sense of community and such a sense of love. And like I said, I'm building a new house in another neighborhood. And do you know what I can't wait to do? Can't wait to have my first pumpkin carving party. And even though it's not a neighborhood where a lot of kids will live, it's in general older people, I can't wait to have our first pumpkin carving party. So
This is the first year in 12 years that I haven't done one, and it was just because we were still getting established.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was the same. It was the same thing. It was we would carve pumpkins and we put on family friendly Halloween movies, and they would just play in the background while we chatted.
Yeah.
And yeah.
All right. Anybody have any last thoughts or comments?
All
right.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you, Anu, for I don't know, I've always like, and Stephanie too, I've just throughout trying to study things, like different religions and stuff like that, and things to do with Halloween, I always felt like I needed to know everything. And I felt like knowing was what I needed to do, was learn and know. But Anu, thank you for kind of helping me to remember that it's about the connection, like especially like if I would think I was connected, but if you're not connected with yourself, then how are you going to connect outwardly or to our ancestors or to whatever else is out there? So I really appreciated this session. So yeah, just thank you.
Good.
Stephanie, I have one question for you. You mentioned you have different kinds of chickens. Do you have, do they lay different colored eggs?
Yes, yes, they do. Yeah, yeah. We have some that lay sort of greenish. They almost look like they've been dyed for Easter. Some that lay little tiny light brown ones, and then some that lay giant brown ones. And so yeah, it depends on the chicken.
You had some chickens that are so big. At first, I'm like, is that a turkey?
So
Because it's huge.
there's
They're
two
huge.
outside breeds. There's the Brahms, which are as babies bigger than full-grown chickens, and then there's Bantams, which are little miniature things that
Oh, I don't think I took
they
pictures of
never
the
get
chickens.
much they never get much bigger than an actual bird. But what's funny about them is they are all very different. We have one that actually looks kind of like a fat sparrow, and then we have one that just looks like a miniature chicken with furry Ugg boots,
Yeah.
like wait for their pumpkin spice latte.
We'll take pictures and put them in the Facebook group because her chickens, they're stunningly beautiful.
Well, and they are all named for exactly who they are. Like their names match their personality and their appearance in every way.
You reminded me of my classmate here. So last semester, she used to bring 2 boxes of eggs, and we would have a pick who is lucky, and she would give away those boxes to the person who won the lottery. And I have seen pink, green, blue, golden, and all sorts of colors. I mean, and you reminded me of her. I thought I should
Yeah,
ask you.
when I first found out, because I thought honestly, when we first started going and grabbing all the eggs, and I'm like, none of these look like the eggs in the store. What is happening? And then he was like, my husband, who's actually familiar with, having chickens and stuff, he's like, yeah, no, that they lay different. This is a whole thing. And I'm like, how come you never told me this? Because it looks like I've just dyed a bunch of Easter eggs.
Yeah, I know. It was new to me as well.
I live on a farm, and my neighbor, or actually Sylvia, she's the matriarch of the farm, and they must have, I don't know, she must have about 200 chickens, because they're totally free range. And yeah, she does collect the eggs when she can find them, but because they're totally free range, they nest everywhere and you can't find the eggs sometimes. So she'll have masses of chicks.
Yeah, no,
And
our chickens have tried hiding in the goat pen to lay. And yeah, ducks and guinea hens will lay everywhere except in the coop or the nest. So
yeah,
their eggs are almost impossible. You stumble upon those by accident. But yeah.
Okay, random thing. In June, like end of June, there are turtles in the pond
Oh
that come up and they lay their eggs in the front yard here.
no! At the wedding, my eldest daughter and
Yeah.
boyfriend found a ton of little snapper turtles
Yes.
all over the property, and they're like,
Yes.
"What does that mean?" I said, "That means there's one in the pond. Be careful with your toes."
Yes. Yes.
that's
All
amazing.
right. All right. Any last thoughts? And if not, I will once again thank all of you who are here and have shared through this class today, and really throughout the whole class. All 6 of the classes. For those of you that are watching this online, if you've made it to this point, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to watch. And, we'll be sending out a survey with asking for some feedback, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you found valuable, what not so much, right? Because we all are different. We all have different needs. But I ask you to help us out and fill out the information so that we can make this even better the next time, because this is going to be something we offer again and again and again.
And be honest, there's
And-
no hurt feelings.
Yes.
Everything is constructive.
Yes.
Everything
Yes.
is.
Actually,
And I
actually,
think
as much as we would like testimonials, I'd almost rather know what didn't work, because that's the only way we're going to make it better. So,
but
just thank you.
both would be nice. Both would be nice. I just I just want to say to everyone that Mayor and I have decided that we will we won't, because of the drop off in attendance, the next 2 weeks is probably going to be it wouldn't have as much impact as what we were hoping it would. So we're actually going to stop the whole experience with these 6 classes this time, and hopefully next time we get more attending. We had a lot of registrations, but not many attended, and I really want to say thank you to all of you who are here, because boy, you have stuck with us and contributed and brought your energy and participated and contributed, and that has made it what it is. So thank you, thank you, thank you. My gratitude is and admiration is all yours. But yes, hopefully with the next experience, with more attendance, we'll be able to do the last 2 weeks with more I don't know, with more energy. That's the word.
Participation.
Yes, absolutely. So please keep your eyes out, because it's not just going to be the secret language of food. We've learned from this, there'll be baby ones coming out. Like we were discussing, Mayor, that like Jan's and Jenny's sessions can actually spawn a whole different experience.
Yeah.
And also, you know, Mayor and I are very much in the planning, and actually it'll come out in February next year. We're thinking of another experience called the I Am experience, which will be all about connection with yourself, connection with the universe and the earth and each other. So we look forward to inviting you to that too. And yes, please do both. Give us what you think we could do better, because we know there's a lot that we could do better, but also a few testimonials would be great, because then that can go out and hopefully we can gather more and more people, and remembering that this is our service to the earth, to humanity. We're doing this in service, not for the money. That's not it's not a business. It's a service in every sense of the word. So thank you, and
Thank you.
and thank you to all the facilitators that have helped us. Mayor and Stephanie, thank you so much for today. Stephanie for opening your home, and Mayor for opening your heart. And yeah, just lots of love to everyone. Jan, did you want to say something? I see you unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. Yeah, that was a very good session today. Just reinforce the fact that we need to keep connecting, and always sit around the table with no TV or no distractions, and connect.
No cell phones.
Yeah.
That's my biggest peeve, and that's with my children, you know. I now say to them, right, you've got a new rule, no cell phones at the table. I mean, sometimes we all like to sit around the TV and have a TV dinner every now and again, but I think if we could do that less and do the sitting at the table more, I think it would help humanity a whole lot.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank
And have a
you.
great
Thank
day.
you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Yes,
Bye.
thank you, lady.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.